A new antiviral pill to treat COVID-19 known as paxlovid will be rolled out to selected polyclinics and PHPCs. Singapore's labour market remains tight with more than 2 positions available for every unemployed person. And China's battling its worst COVID-19 outbreak in 2 years with millions placed under lockdown. Hello, you're watching The Big Story. I'm Olivia Quay. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you don't miss a single episode. Paxlovid, the new antiviral pill to treat COVID-19, will be rolled out at selected polyclinics and public health preparedness clinics in phases. But the Health Ministry has not yet specified when this will be done. If you recall, Paxlovid is the first COVID-19 pill authorized for use here. Well, those eligible for the drug are patients at polyclinics, PHPCs and hospitals who are at risk of severe COVID-19 and are within 5 days of onset of illness. These patients will not have to pay for the costs of Paxlovid, which will be covered by MOH. While the cost of the drug is not known here, in the US it's about $530 or 710 Singapore dollars for the full 5-day course. Well, the National Centre for Infectious Diseases tells the Straits Times that it's begun administering the drug to a handful of patients 2 weeks ago and that it's already being used in acute hospitals. Stay tuned to a panel discussion on Singapore's COVID-19 restrictions tomorrow at 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel. Find out from the experts why our measures are still in place despite signs that the Omicron wave is subsiding and when they think more easing will happen. In other news, 2021 was very much a recovery year for Singapore's labour market. Total employment, excluding migrant domestic workers, rebounded by 41,400 last year. Compare that to a sharp contraction of 166,600 the year before. And based on latest figures from December, the labour market remains tight. There are just over 2 positions available for every unemployed person here. Well, the high number of openings was driven in part by travel restrictions impacting the inflow of migrant workers. I'm now joined by Mr. Patrick Tay, Assistant Secretary General from NTUC. Welcome to the show, Patrick. So we know the pace of recovery continues to be uneven across various sectors. For the sectors that have pretty much overcome the fallout of the pandemic, what's the employment outlook for them?
Yeah, I think that today's labour market report for 2021 is overall a positive one. And looking into 2022, I expect businesses to gradually pick up, including some of the growth sectors, which actually have shown quite positive signs even in 2021. I mean, they include, as mentioned in the report, sectors like infocom, technology, financial services, professional services, healthcare, and many of the frontline positions. And we are also seeing a gradual pickup in the F&B and retail with the easing of safe management measures. But I think the biggest challenge is that the labour market remains tight and it will go into 2022 continuing to stay tight. And many of these growth sectors require new skills and knowledge. So the key for employers as well as for workers is to really pick up the necessary skills in demand and all upskill themselves.
Of course. But Patrick, as we both of us know and everyone knows, there are still sectors struggling like aviation and tourism. What's the forecast for such sectors?
Yes, some of the sectors like tourism and aviation are still trying to stay afloat. As you can see, the recovery is gradual and incremental, partly because the borders are only gradually opening. However, I forecast that there'll be a light at the end of the tunnel. I think important for employers and businesses to really use this period of time to re-examine their strategies and really prepare for the upturn as borders open up. And during this period, use this opportunity really to equip and upskill their workers so that they can ride the wave and things improve and really borders open up.
Well, Patrick, as a final question, we had figures, job vacancy figures from December. If I'm on the hunt for a new job, not saying that I am, is now a good time for that?
Yes, if you have heard of the Great Resignation, Everyone is saying, there's a great attrition in many companies, including both the private and public sector. And many workers are re-examining their priorities and career directions, especially with what's happened these 2 years. So I know many employers, there are new opportunities as highlighted in the report, but the key thing is many of them require a lot of new skills and knowledge. So it's great if you have those skills, but if not, then you'll probably need to pick them up, because those currently in jobs will also have to do so really to see how best to stay really relevant and resilient. And just a few, I say 3 tips. Stay in tune with what's available, stay in touch with the industry and sector networks, and finally, you really stay abreast with the in-demand skills.
Fantastic. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Patrick. Patrick Tay there, NTUC's Assistant Secretary General.
Thank you.
Overseas, as mainland China struggles to contain a fast-spreading Omicron outbreak, it reported 1,437 symptomatic COVID-19 cases yesterday, with about 93% locally transmitted. And amid the surge, for the first time, authorities will allow the use of rapid antigen tests to diagnose COVID-19. Well, these tests are widely used elsewhere in the world, including Singapore, but have been restricted in China, where the virus has been kept under control for most of the past 2 years. The kits will now be available for use by ordinary citizens and clinics. Let's find out more from our China correspondent, Elizabeth Law, who joins me from Beijing. So Liz, with China keeping a zero COVID-19 strategy for the past 2 years, what's daily life like for the average person compared with Singapore and other countries that are adopting endemicity?
Right. Thanks for having me as usual, Ollie. So China is basically much like what we remember of pre-COVID, the world pre-COVID. Everyone is going about their daily lives as per normal. There are no limits on the number of people that can go into shopping malls. There is no restrictions on places you can go except places of COVID, of course. And essentially, diners are able to gather till whatever time the restaurant is open until, which is, of course, beyond 10:30, unlike in Singapore. The only slight difference is that everyone is wearing a mask. So essentially, living in China now is like living within this COVID-free bubble. You are almost free to do whatever you want, except the fact that you can't leave the country easily. But when it comes to certain measures like safe distancing, you still have to scan a QR code to enter a building, but how strictly that is enforced is really depending on where you are going to as well. And of course, there are other small little things that have changed. For instance, people no longer spit as much as they used to in the streets, which is something that I've been personally very happy about. And I think people are just a little bit more mindful about personal hygiene when you go into restaurants, when you go into places, even when you go into cars, like private hire cars, you do see bottles of sanitizer everywhere. And, it's just become a way of life.
And how does the public feel about this approach that China is taking of eliminating the virus instead of living with it? Given the current sentiment, will there be a shift in control methods moving forward?
Right. So there are 2 parts to that question. And also, I suppose much of Chinese society has also been slightly divided on this. Initially, at the very early stages, of course, people were very supportive of the government framing this as a war, a battle against the virus. But as time has gone on, they keep promising that there will be 春暖花开when the spring comes and the weather is warmer. Flowers will bloom. The poetic way of saying that this will all soon be over, this too shall pass. But clearly 2 and a bit more years on, this isn't quite happening. And they're seeing the rest of the world reopening while China still has fairly strict measures. Even if life is pretty much as per normal, but whenever there are cases and small outbreaks, people go into lockdown. Estates are sealed off, office buildings are sealed off, including our office building sometime last year when there was a close contact that came here for lunch. Everyone here was put under lockdown and had to be tested before being allowed out. So that sort of thing creates a lot of uncertainty People aren't exactly willing to travel domestically anymore because they worry that they might go on a holiday and end up getting stuck somewhere in quarantine for 2 weeks. And that has been reflected also in consumer spending that has been a bit sluggish. And so people are in a way tired. But of course, whenever that is being suggested that, maybe we should start living with the virus, there is this other very, very vocal nationalistic side that comes out and tries to shut down that conversation. So for instance, last year, there was a very prominent Dr. Zhang Wenhong based in Shanghai. He said that maybe we should start looking at strategies that, long-term strategies on how we're going to live this virus. And immediately he was shut down and people doxed him and made a complaint against him for plagiarism. So it's all very nasty. And even if the government wants to try and have a roadmap forward for trying to live with this virus, I think they have to tread very carefully, because how do you undo 2 years of messaging and 2 years of policy that has been all focused on trying to just completely eliminate the virus?
I see. So then Liz is opening up a pipe dream at this stage. My Mandarin isn't as good as yours, but is spring coming anytime soon?
I suppose the short answer to it is no, it's not. And today, that same doctor that I mentioned earlier, Dr. Zhang Wenhong, he put up another piece to say that, are we actually going through a long, bitter winter, or are we actually going through something that we need to learn to live with? So the short answer to your question is no, I don't think China is going to open up in the way that many people are hoping that it would, meaning that without people will be able to travel and quarantine free quite easily, the way we are used to. But I suspect that, and given indications from what policymakers have been talking about last week during the 2 sessions meetings, I think because economic recovery is still something that is very big on their minds, they would possibly ease visa restrictions. We might see more people being allowed to travel in, but quarantine is here to stay for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Liz, and of course, stay safe in Beijing. That was Elizabeth Law there, the Straits Times' China correspondent. Over in Shenzhen, 2 major chip suppliers to Apple, Foxconn and Unimicron Technology, have suspended operations in the city. After 60 new local cases were confirmed on Saturday, Shenzhen will conduct 3 rounds of mass testing. And Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam says there are currently no plans to further tighten social distancing measures. It already has some of its strictest measures since 2020, with a ban on gatherings of more than 2 people, the shutting of most venues including schools, and the compulsory mask wearing even when exercising outdoors. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Olivia Quay. Thanks so much for watching The Big Story. See you tomorrow.